Metal Slug.
More real meat. Alright, here we are. Let's get some BGM up here. And begin the rules, which you can find in Giga on Discord if you feel like it. I'm sure they're all over the place. Core rules, advanced rules. How to use special units like wizards and priests. How are wizards and priests not just core? That seems weird. To me, that's like not including ranged weapons in core. Who's not going to use wizards? But then again, it's not really... I think what it's really doing isn't you and your friends don't want to play with magic, right? Because then it would be like, hey, I got my Tzeentch army, and your opponent's like, let's not play with magic. You know? And that's not okay. I think it's just the core rules are never changing, and all the advanced rules probably are in seasons, and they're going to add stuff. Fegala. Thanks for the Prime. Appreciate it on Twitch. Korn will not use wizards. True, yeah. I'm playing Korn, you're playing Tzeentch. Let's not play with the magic module thing. They're just too complicated. Anyway, glossary. Alphabetized list of important rule terms along with summarized definitions. Handy reference tool. Nice. The rules are numbered. Great. You love to see it. Alright, core rules. The most important rule is have fun. Core concepts. Must I read the core concepts? Tools of war, a tape measure, some dice, a surface to play on the battlefield, and 2 armies of Citadel miniatures. I don't know about that. I don't know about that one, but whatever makes you feel alright. Give me some rules bold. Measuring distances. Within and wholly within. We still have this awful thing, wholly within, don't like it. Never did. I feel like you should either have strict coherency or wholly within. I think they're both kind of trying to stop the same problem, and I would just choose one, to be perfectly honest. And the one I would choose was coherency. But that's just me. We're doubling up. That's fine. Dice. Blah, blah, blah. Designer's notes. Factions. War scrolls. Here we have a Spearhead War Scroll. Alright. Cornered rat. New type keywords. We pawns. Control save. Alright. Down here we got ward hidden away. You know, I think ward is a little hidden. I guess you're just... The first few times you look at a war scroll, you're like, oh, it has fly, because it's so tiny and at the bottom. I guess you just train yourself to look for that, you know? Alright. Control special. Okay, we got little ability icons here. The vast majority of abilities, of things you can do are abilities. This is an example. Shoot. Happens in your shooting phase. Name and description. Declare instructions, effect keywords. Core attack, shoot. Okay. Some abilities have one or more keywords listed at the bottom of the ability of their keywords bar, like shoo it. Keywords let you know which abilities can be used or which units can be picked as the targets. For example, charge can only be used by a unit that did not. Okay, yeah, they bring along other rules and limitations and exceptions with them. Tell your opponent which ability is being used. If the ability has declare instructions, resolve them at this step, then you use reactions. Starting with active player. The players use alternate using any abilities with the appropriate reaction timing. I'm gonna go quickly to 12.0. I assume active player means the player whose turn it is. player who finished setting up their army first decides who will take the first turn. If it is not priority, blah blah blah. When it's a player's turn, they are the active player, right? That's what I thought. So unlike Magic. Well, kind of unlike Magic, kind of not unlike Magic. You can't, like, immediately respond to yourself sometimes. Follow the instructions in the effect part, alright? The rules of 1. A unit cannot use more than one core ability per phase. This is going to be a hard one to keep in mind. Because there's a lot of random abilities that, you know, maybe they count as core, maybe they don't count as core. And so we're going to have to pay attention to that as we're reading through, right? Obviously they have to write this so that you don't just keep fighting forever or something, right? A unit cannot use the same ability more than once per phase, unless specified otherwise. Same ability, okay. Meaning the same ability name, I guess. A unit cannot be affected by the same passive ability more than once at the same time. If a unit is within range of 2 different terrain features that have cover, the effect only applies once. Okay. Seems like you can be affected by more than one ability, though. Just not passive. And a unit cannot use the same ability more than once. But you can be, like, affected by. I'm thinking about affecting and using here. Passive abilities are not declared, they just happen. Abilities example, any combat phase, you fight. Okay. Core attack fight. Fight includes pile-in and attack under its umbrella. Yeah, you can be under 4 different passives and like 7 different abilities that all sorts of other people are doing, but just not the same passive. You can be affected by the same ability, though, right? You can't use the same ability more than once, but if there's an exception, you can be affected by the same ability more than once, as long as it's not passive. As I read the rules of 1 here, I'm thinking about situations where someone has an unlimited spell. Let's say there's an unlimited spell that does, you know, whatever, -1 movement or something. Well, you could cast that spell like 3 times and affect the same guy, and he'd be under -3 move. As I read the rules of 1, at least, if such an ability and situation could exist. After declaring fight, the person whose turn it is gets to choose if they all-out attack, and then the other person gets to all-out defense. Sure. Add 1 to save rolls, and add 1 to hit rolls. This also affects weapons that have the companion weapon ability. Okay. I wondered. So this is one of the few exceptions, it seems, to the companion thing. You can still all-out attack companions. But it seems you gotta say it, otherwise it doesn't. This is... Yeah, this is a big change from 3rd edition, where companions, or rather mounts, couldn't be affected by some stuff like artifacts and command traits, but they could be affected by everything else, and that was fun. However, it was too fun, and so they're not allowed to be affected by anything except all-out attack. I'm sad. However, this is an edition where they're trying to lower damage, I guess, and so this is one way to do it, because usually companion abilities are very good. This means if you're relying on companion abilities for your army, that's in general mostly a bad thing. Maybe we'll get to a companion definition later and we can find all the different exceptions. A target model is visible to another model, which we will call the observing model. Oh, you're an observer, huh? If you can draw a straight line through the air, whether horizontal, diagonal, or vertical, from any point on the observing model to any point in the target model that does not intersect any objects except for other models in the observing models unit. Any point on the observing model. Even though only half of the Liberator can be seen, he counts as being visible because you can see any part of him, okay. And the only thing you ignore is the observing models unit. That's what you ignore. It's essentially just true line of sight still. Okay. Any point. Right. Combat range is just 3. Big buff to a lot of stuff. Big buff to a lot of stuff. And damage. Huge increase in damage, especially for big units of guys. They do have to be visible though, as shown here. Not visible, can't attack, right? And then you got these blobs of area. Setting up for the battle. The army's battle plans, battlefield map. Territories. A unit is within a territory if any part of the base. A unit is wholly within if everything. The area of the battlefield that is neither player's territory is neutral territory. Alright. The deployment phase. Some factions have faction terrain features which have their own war scroll and are set up using deploy terrain abilities. Player who begins deployment must use deploy terrain abilities first, followed by their opponent. Player who begins deployment can use any deploy terrain. Player alternate using deploy. Player begins deployment must use any. Okay. How do you decide who starts deploying first? Is there a... am I missing something here? Players alternate using deploy abilities to deploy their units, starting with the player who begins deployment. Yeah, but who does that? It doesn't say. C12? Okay. It does say C12. Weird that it's not in order, but okay. At the start of each battle round, follow these steps. Determine the active player. If it is the first battle round, the player who finished setting up their army first decides who will take the first turn. Okay, but I'm asking a question before that. Yeah, who starts setting up first? This didn't help. It said on the previous page, the top left, okay. Oh, way up here. Okay. Unless specified otherwise in the battle, set up. The player who lost the roll-off to choose territories decides. I figured it was a roll-off. I just wondered where it was written. I thought it would be written in the rules section, but it was written in the, like, explainer commentary area. Okay. It was a question that I didn't need an answer to. I just wondered where it was that it said it. After both players have finished deploying, the player who begins deployment can use any deployment phase abilities that are not deploy or deploy terrain abilities in the order of their choosing, and then, okay. Deploy unit, pick a unit, set up the target unit wholly. After you have done so, it has been deployed. Okay. Deploy regiment. Pick a regiment from your army roster to be the target. No units in the regiment can have already been deployed. Keep using deploys until it's done. So, this is why regiments are good. Because as like previous, yeah, they're essentially one drop. That's why regiments are good. Battle lasts a fixed number of battle rounds. Each battle round contains 2 turns. Player's turn is taking place as the active player. Each turn contains 7 phases. In each phase, the active player uses abilities first, then their opponent does the same. But you do all your abilities first. Determine the underdog. Whichever player has the fewest victory points is the underdog for that battle round. If the players are tied, then there's just no underdog. Simple as that. Active player can use any start of battle round abilities, and then their opponent can do the same. Okay. What do you get for being an underdog again? Does anyone remember? Is it just a command point? Which is actually good, but... Turn phases. Start, hero, move, shoot, charge, combat, end. Abilities with the fight keyword follow a different sequence to other abilities. When the players are using combat phase abilities only, as described in 13, they cannot use fight abilities. You have to wait until everything is done and then use fights. But that doesn't seem to be the case anywhere else. Even the shoot phase. Once a player has no more units that are eligible to use a fight, the other player continues to pick units that are eligible. Yep. Combat not fight, players alternate until you're both out. Yeah, combat phase is different. I was wondering about that before we saw how it worked. If the command point bonus is now for the underdog, is there a benefit to going second in the round? Yes. You're lined up for a double. Even though doubles have more downsides than they used to, you would still rather be lined up for one, just in case you want it, rather than your opponent. So I still think it's better to just be going at the bottom of every battle round. Also, interestingly, because of some of the downsides they put into double turn, if you take one and can't score victory points, you might automatically become the underdog for taking a double turn. And so the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. It's kind of interesting. I wonder if that was intentional. Universal core abilities. Alright. And that's what these are. Normal move, which is core move. You have run, which is core move run. You have retreat, which is core move retreat. Inflict D3 mortal damage on a unit that is retreating. I don't know why though. How come? Why? From like a mechanical standpoint, why would you punish retreating? Attack of opportunity? That's from like a visualization, simulation, like realism setting. I'm thinking why mechanically? Because almost no one ever retreats unless you're an advanced player trying to do some cool skill thing for the most part, right? I just don't think it comes up a lot. Unless it's in tournaments or something. It's strange that they would damage you for retreating when it's used so rarely. And half the time when you retreat, your opponent just charges you the very next turn and kills you anyways. It's like, I don't know. It's weird. You kind of die next turn one way or another, I suppose. From a Dungeons and Dragons attack of opportunity perspective, sure, but I was thinking about mechanically. They must not want you to retreat if they're hurting you when you retreat, or maybe they think retreating is too good or something. It needs a downside. I don't know if I feel that way, but maybe it is. Maybe because you can charge on your opponent's turn now sometimes? No. Because you would still end up being so close. I don't know. It's mostly so you can't use it as a way to get out of combat and get on a point. Why? I don't know. Do you think that's bad? Do you think people think that's bad? I think that's fun or good. You can try to lock them in combat. You can kill them. I don't know. If they don't like retreating onto a point, why do they let you redeploy onto a point? Maybe they don't want it to be like 40k where you retreat to open up shooting. Oh, that's right. They changed every ranged weapon in the game almost to not be able to shoot in combat. I forgot they did that, which I'm sad about. I don't like that. So maybe that's why. I don't know. Yeah, maybe that's it. Retreating is one of the most powerful moves in the game. It can be. But when it's not, it's terrible. And it's usually not. Just God. When retreating is good, it like wins you the game. But 90% of the time, it's not worth doing and wouldn't do anything. So that's kind of like how I feel about retreating. When it's the right choice, it's really strong, but it's usually not worth doing. I would say very often not worth doing. Which is kind of what I meant by the advanced player, average player thing. You can't retreat and shoot unless you have a rule that specifies. True. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I care. I was just wondering what the thought process was here. I'm trying to puzzle it out. I don't consider it a good thing or a bad thing. It's just like, that's a weird change. It's kind of like when they introduced a critical, what is the critical spell fumble when you roll Snake Eyes? And now your wizard, besides just failing to cast a spell, his head blows up and he can't cast spells anymore. I'm like, why? Isn't it bad enough you didn't get your spell? Why do we need an extra paragraph of rules punishing you for failing? Sounds like a rule they would add if this was a TTRPG like Chainmail or Rifts, but it's weird in a war game, I guess. Maybe they want it to be more like Battle Mat, TTRPG. It does make armies like Skaven seem sneakier when they retreat without penalty. Sure, but you're everyone in the game is now punished, except for the one army we wanted to be special, just to give them a special thing. I don't know. Could have given them a special thing instead. It's a throwback? Okay. Well, then I don't like it. I don't like throwbacks that don't make much sense. But also I don't care. Anyway, shooting phase. Pick a friendly unit that has not used run or retreat, and they can shoot. Core attack shoot. Shouldn't it say in shoot that you can't shoot in combat? Pick a friendly unit that has not used run or retreat. Then pick one or more enemy units as the target of that unit's attacks. I would put the not in combat declaration up here maybe. Yeah, like here we have charge phase, pick a friendly unit that's not in combat. Why not do that for the shoot? If maybe it's in 116 instead, yeah. Because they just do it with charge. Why not do it with shoot? Core move charge, alright? Your charge phase. Combat phase, fights. You make a pile in. Yeah, sure, resolve combat attacks against it. Got it. Got a little chameleon skink over here with them blowguns. Might be because when people would be annoying that shoot in combat doesn't work. Well, this is a game of exception-based design. And so someone who claims that shoot in combat doesn't work might also claim that fly doesn't work. Because fly lets you do things that normal moves can't. And that kind of person would just be talking to hear themselves talk at that point. Movement. Each model can turn and pivot, but no part of its base can move farther than the maximum distance. Yep. Units can move any distance up to the maximum specified in the ability. Units must end their move in coherency, yeah. Oh, they're just copying this paragraph over here, I guess. Model's base is assumed to remain parallel with the battlefield as it moves. Otherwise it has to go around or over stuff. After finishing a move, a unit must be in a single group. Coherency range is half-inch horizontally. Ooh, half-inch, okay. Didn't this used to be 1? We're tightening up coherency now. Be in blocks. But combat is 3, so it's like, fine. Each model must be within coherency range of a different model from the same unit. While the unit has 7 or more models, each model must be in coherency with 2 other models in the unit. How come? 7 models seems like a strange and arbitrary number to me. I guess good because ogres have 6. They're one of the few things that have 6. So good. Good for ogres, I guess. Most stuff is 5s and 10s. Anytime a unit is set up or ends a move, it must be in a single group, at least one other model. If there's 7 or more, coherency range is a half-inch. At least 2. If it is not possible for a unit to end a move in a single coherent group, the move cannot be made. Oh, it's so 3-man units aren't punished if reinforced. You are right. Yep. I knew it wasn't ogres. It for sure wasn't ogres. It's because your 3-man brand new Stormcast Annihilators can be reinforced. That's the actual reason. I'm glad we found it. We got to the answer. Moving across terrain. This changed a little, right? Models can freely move over terrain features 1 or less height. Models can climb up and down terrain features, and they can jump down from a higher ledge. They cannot end a move mid-climb or mid-jump. This is a change from third. Good. We're inching closer towards the if it sits, it fits, you know, or whatever the rule is. Here's my question. You can move freely over terrain features that are 1 or less in height. Now, while you are calculating the vertical climb, do you get to ignore the first inch? Counting the vertical distance as part of its move. I think you don't get to ignore the first inch. I think you gotta measure that. Because you're not really ignoring the first inch, you're ignoring a terrain feature that is 1 inch. You're not ignoring distance, you're ignoring a terrain feature. And if it's taller than an inch, you don't get to ignore the terrain feature. Never mind, I talked myself through it. That's how it works. I talked myself through it. Yeah, you definitely don't ignore the first inch. Because you're not ignoring the first inch, you're ignoring the terrain feature itself that happens to be smaller than that. Anyway, as I read the rule anyway. Yeah, the burglar, I think you're right. I think you just have to measure the whole last thing. Jumping down, you just do it. When a model's on terrain feature moves, it can jump down from the edge of the terrain feature to land on a lower part. To do so, you must trace a path of the model's move to the edge of the terrain feature. Then the model can jump down any distance, but doing so immediately ends their move. Models cannot end any move mid-jump. Okay. So, and that's an option. If you have an extra 14 inches, you can just move it, right? Or you can jump down and it ends it. Okay. I'm pleased that you don't stop halfway up or down anymore, because it's kind of annoying to figure out where the thing actually is. You think they want more low terrain walls on the table? Maybe. Pylon moves. Move up to 3. If in combat, the unit must end the move closer, or at least as close, to the target enemy unit. You target with a pylon move. It targets now, I assume. Because all, you know, it's an ability. The move can pass through the combat ranges of any enemy units, but each model must end that move no further from the target unit. At the end of the move, your unit must still be in combat, must be coherent. I like how you can move in any direction if you're not in combat. You can just go wherever. You don't have to move towards, like, whatever across the table nearest thing there is. I kind of like that. Note that some units have the fly keyword, even if that unit can't really fly. This often represents units that bounce, bound, or skitter across the battlefield so adeptly that they might as well be flying! Exclamation point. We put them in here. Just like Palladium Rifts, we got exclamation points in some rules text. If you're not in combat, you can just get a free 3-inch move. Yeah, if you charge, that's how it's always been. If you have charged this turn, and by the time it gets around to your combat, you're no longer in combat for some reason, you get to pile in a direction. Yeah, that's left over from previous editions. Do the new movement rules imply that you can't swing your cavalry bases around or not? You can swivel it however you want, but you started here, and the furthest part of the base has to end whatever that movement is. So you can spin it like a windmill on its way. Doesn't matter. But it's never going to get you extra movement ever, though. That's the only thing, right? Anyway, I like that it's target enemy unit up here. I like how it's not closest enemy unit, it's target enemy unit. But I wonder, did we have a pile-in description here? 15.4, my dude. Some abilities such as fight allow a unit to make a short move called a pile-in. If it is in combat, pick an enemy unit your unit is in combat with to be the target. Yeah. Cool. And that's a unit. I like that. You can't pile out of combat, yeah. Cool. Ignore the vertical distance moved, sure. Yeah, not being forced in the pile into the closest unit is big. However, you cannot leave combat. And you can't leave combat with any of them, yeah. I don't think. Yeah. You must still be in combat with, emphasis mine, all the units that it was in combat with. So you can't... It's not about staying in any type of combat. You have to stay in all the combats you started in, I guess. But it's still nice, I think. Ahem. Picking targets. When declaring an attack for an ability, you must pick the target units for the attacks. Number of attacks for each model can make is equal to the attacks characters the weapons using. In most cases, models attack with every weapon on their war scroll. So some war scrolls specify certain. You can only target units that are in combat with it. If the model has more than one attack, you can split the attacks between eligible targets as you wish. A unit cannot make shooting attacks if it is in combat, unless otherwise specified. In which case, I would have just put it right here. Just like they did with charge. I would have put that in the shoot ability. And then if you had in combat shooting, then you just ignore that rule like you ignore all the other rules if you have a special ability. In most cases, models attack with bluff. The unit is in combat, you can only target units in combat with. Combat attacks are made with melee weapons. Target unit must be within the combat range. Yep. And visible. Visible is big. Shooting attacks are made with range. Target must be within range. Models cannot make shooting attacks if their unit is in combat unless specified otherwise. Boo. Doesn't really matter, but boo. Critical hits have no effect on their own, but often trigger additional effects. True. I wish they would have talked about random attack characteristic things here, which was an old FAQ that they'll probably have to reapply, I bet. When you are dividing your targets as you choose, the old FAQ was if you have like D6 attacks, you would actually roll that number before you choose who you're attacking, so that you can evenly disperse it. I'm sure that's probably how it's going to end up being. But it would have been nice for a little reminder text over here for that one. Perhaps it's later. If you picked more than one target unit for an attack ability, resolve all the attacks made against the one unit before moving on to the next. I think that's the normal way people tend to do it anyhow, right? In an order of your choosing. Once you are familiar with the attack sequence, see fast dice rolling if you want to speed up that play. In order to speed up play, it is often possible to make several attacks at once. If you choose to do so, all the attacks must have the same hit, wound, rend, and damage characteristics. The same weapon abilities, if any, and they must target the same enemy unit. If this is the case, just do it all. Yeah, sure. If the attack sequence ends for an attack made while fast dice rolling, it doesn't stop the attack sequence for all the attacks, just that one specific. Yeah. Makes sense. If the roll equals or exceeds the attack weapon's hit, it hits. Move on to the next. If not, unmodified hit rolls a 1 always fail. If an unmodified hit roll for an attack made with a weapon is a 6, it is a critical hit. If the roll equals or exceeds weapon's wound characteristic, the attack 6 wounds. Move on to it. If not, attack fails. Unmodified wound rolls a 1 always fail. Do note that while a 1 always fails, a 6 doesn't always succeed. It does always do its critical hit thing, but it doesn't necessarily always succeed on modified 6. Safe roll. Subtract the attacking weapon's rend from the roll. Unmodified save rolls a 1 always fail. If the roll equals or exceeds save characteristic of the unit, the attack fails, sequence ends. If not, it's successful. Yeah, and a 6 doesn't always pass here either. Do you have 2 different attacks on this profile of 20 attacks? Just use different colored dice, yeah. The attack inflicts a number of damage points, okay. Inflicted damage points are added to a temporary damage pool. After completing these steps for all the attacks for that ability are resolved, and you can move on to the damage sequence. So we're carrying a bin of damage, and we're moving towards it. Attack modifiers and caps. Okay, here's what I was wondering about. This is going to answer a lot of questions. Modifiers to hit rolls, wound rolls, save rolls are capped, rules bold, to prevent overwhelming combinations of abilities. i.e., to prevent fun. Or if you're on the receiving end, not fun. Kind of depends. Boo, no fun allowed. This is not a Johnny game, it is only a Timmy game. When making a hit roll or a wound roll, add up all the positive and negative modifiers that apply to the roll, then cap the result to a max of +1 if positive, or a minimum of -1 if negative. Fun detected. When making a save roll, add up all the positive and negative modifiers that apply to the roll, then cap the result at +1. Note that unlike hit rolls and wound rolls, there's no cap on the amount that can be subtracted from save rolls. Oh, really? Okay. 17.1, boo. Mostly fine with capping penalties, but sad that we're capping bonuses. And also, 6 years later, still sad that everything changed to natural 6s instead of modified 6s, how it used to be. The good old days. The good old days of lightning loops in the corner. The things that are not capped are damage and attacks, so there's still some fun to be had. Some abilities inflict mortal damage. If an ability inflicts mortal damage on a unit, add the number of damage points to the unit's damage pool for that ability. Okay. Some abilities inflict mortal damage. This should read, every third ability in the entire game inflicts mortal damage. It's always roll a d3. 33% nothing, or 2 or 3. Everything in the game. Alright, fast dice rolling, we read that. Nice artwork here with some new rat mongolers. The damage sequence. After resolving the effect of any ability that inflicts damage, you got this bin, you got this damage bin. You resolve ward saves for all damage points in the target unit's damage pool, if applicable. Allocate the damage points to the unit's damage pool and remove slain models. Units with a ward keyword have a ward save passive ability. The number... We won, by the way. The players won. The players have always called it ward save. And the designers never wanted to call it that. We won. They're calling it ward saves. We celebrated last time for that too. But we did it. We did it. The number after the ward indicates the ward value for the ward. If the unit has a ward of 5 up, what kind of unit would that be? Everybody who used to. For example, the unit value would be 5. Yeah, ward save. Allocating damage. When allocated damage points to a unit, the damage points in its damage pool are allocated to it one at a time. Each time the number of the damage equals health characteristics, something slain. Keep allocating damage points until there are none left. The number of damage points allocated to a unit is not enough to slay a model. Keep track of the number of damage points currently allocated to the unit. While it has any damage points on it, it is damaged. Keyword, nice. Good. Notice that this is still the same as third, where the true way of doing it is allocating damage points onto stuff. So counting up with the die is the canonically correct way of doing it, for anyone wondering. You might like counting down because then it lets the other player know what the life of that thing is, but the rules writers apparently know better than you, and counting up is simply the intended and correct way. Anyway, moving on. Slain models. The commander of a unit must pick which models in the unit are slain. However, after each slain is removed, the unit must be in a single pairing group. If it's not possible, continue to remove models until it is. Okay. Destroyed units. When the last model in a unit is slain, the unit is destroyed. If something causes the unit to be destroyed, all models in the unit are slain. Oh, you got it. Oh, we got a diagram, attack sequence. Dude, flowchart stormcast, huh? Hey, alright. I appreciate them trying different ways of showing you this information. That's alright. Hey, alright. Mortal damage goes into damage pool here. What this means is there will no longer be ward rolls against only mortals or only normal damage. Because mortal damage adds to the pool up here, it means that there's only ever going to be one type of ward, it seems, in AOS. And that's a ward. No versus mortals, no versus whatever. Which I don't know, I'm kind of sad about, actually. I thought it was a useful type of granularity. And Chaos Rune Shields and stuff. What's that? Ignax's Scales, you know, things like that. There's an attacking example, we don't need that. Special rules. Oh, special rules. Okay. Strike first and strike last. At this moment, I'm feeling bad because I'm experiencing kaleidoscopic vision, which happens half an hour, 45 minutes before a migraine, typically. And it's making this difficult to read, but I'm going to get through it anyway. So if I make a reading mistake, it's because of that. Apologies. Alright. First strike and strike last. If there are any strike first units in combat at the start of the phase, other units cannot be picked to use a fight ability until those units have been picked to use. Okay, yeah, we knew that. After all the strike first, then active player picks, so it's just like before. If there any strike last, everybody else goes, and then they do. If a unit has strike first and strike last, treat it as if it had neither. Cool, we have an easy answer to that right away. You love it. You love to see it. Ahem. There may be situations when a unit that has strike first is not in combat at the start of the phase and then gets put in there later. Good question. I love them adding this kind of stuff over here. In such cases, strike first has no effect on that unit because it was not in combat at the start of the phase. Do they still get to fight? Abilities allow a unit to use fight immediately after another unit. Do not override the strike first or strike last constraints. So you could not pick a unit with strike last to fight immediately after a unit with strike first. Okay. But if you have strike first and you have immediately after, do they go first? I guess it doesn't override. It doesn't override strike first, strike last, but does it override normal? I guess is my question. And then also up here, I think it's pretty easy to answer up here. If you have strike first, but you're pulled into combat later, obviously you don't skip your fighting, right? You still do get to attack. It's probably worth an FAQ, but I'm sure that's how it's gonna go, you know. As to this one, I'm not sure. It doesn't override normal, so it doesn't bring you up to strike first. If it has an ability that somebody fights immediately after them, what it means by immediately after is not really immediate, like later. So you do all the strike firsts, and then that guy gets to go, and then you do normal activation, or I guess, I don't know. Strike first, can't pull a regular to fight immediately after. Okay. That sucks. I don't like that. But then again, every time they change the game to have fewer combos and less interesting Johnny interactions, I'm always sad. But this is part of what it means to streamline, I guess. Ahem. Yeah, I guess they're like solid walls, you know. Weapon abilities, universal weapon abilities, anti-X. Anti-X, that's a cool name. +1 rend, and it's just whatever type it is. Charge, companion. This weapon is not affected by anything that's fun, and sucks. But its stats might be good. But still, no fun allowed on way less fun allowed on companion attacks than I previously thought, actually. Like, you can't even cast a spell to give a companion attack +1 the wound anymore. You used to be able to. As far as I read this, anyway. That fucking sucks, dude. Companions? A vampire slurping the fun. Okay. That's not quite true? Oh, good. I'm happy that that is maybe true. Crit auto wound, crit 2 hits, crit mortal, shoot in combat, healan. Some abilities allow you to heal a unit, remove blah. Yeah, okay, got it. The important note on anti is they are cumulative, yes. I guess I assumed they would be, but you know, I assumed a lot of other stuff that seems explicitly not allowed because it would be fun, and so we got to keep the cumulative fun up here for rend. companions are not as screwed. Good. Returning and adding models. Tokens are not considered... Here's a token. Tokens are not considered to be models for rules purposes and can be ignored or moved out of the way for purposes of visibility. Okay. And they're just like... Yeah, okay. They are a token, in other words. Setting up units. Some... A unit set up on the battlefield in a phase other than deployment cannot use move abilities in the movement phase of the same turn. Specifically movement phase and abilities that have the move rules bold thing keyword at the bottom. So that's important to note. Replacement units have to have... It should have the same war scroll, weapon options, and number of models, unless otherwise specified. Many of these abilities specify the proportion of models in the replacement unit, half the number. In these cases, you can pick which models from the original unit are set up. The replacement unit is otherwise treated as a new unit. Any keywords or abilities in the original persisting does not apply. Each unit can only be replaced once. So, does this mean you can pick which models from the original unit are set up? Does this mean I get my special weapons in a 5-man squad instead of a 10? Because it reads as I do here. And then down here, the replacement unit otherwise treated as a new unit. Once per game, now twice per game. If the thing died. Because it's new. It's a new unit. Let's fucking go. Okay, replacement unit's good. You get the best of all worlds. You get your champion, your special weapon, even though you're a small unit. And you get your once per games back if you didn't. You still only get 1 in 3 or 1 in 5 or whatever? No. Because up here, in these cases, you can pick which models from the original unit are set up. So you choose those, right? And then down here, the replacement unit is otherwise treated, right? Is there a sentence before it? When setting up the unit, it should have the same war scroll type, weapon options, and number of models as the original. Many of these abilities specify the proportion of models in the replacement unit. Yeah, like half. Yeah, so if you get half, you get to choose which models, my special guys, and then otherwise. So besides the special guy appearing, it's otherwise treated as a new unit. So this is a way to get around that, as far as I see it. You get to keep your big cool guy, you get to keep your champion, and you get your once per games back. Big. Read the green box in the right part. Oh, is it just because a replacement unit is treated as a completely new one? It could, for instance, use once per battle on its own. Hey, just to let you know. Nice. Understandably, monsters and war machines don't benefit from the guarded hero ability. These units are very conspicuous targets, even if they are surrounded by their fellows. Yeah, for sure. Student eye doctor here. Oh, Raven's Crime. Student eye doctor? What for? Is somebody getting their vision diagnosed? You get a crescent of vision fuzz. You've taken to calling it the bad moon. That's funny. I get kaleidoscopic is what I call it, or maybe stained glass, like shattered glass effect, you know? And it's generally in a blob or a place or a ring, and it's, you know, when you move around it changes as your eye moves. So at first I thought it was maybe retinal damage or something, but it turns out it's pretty common in the lead up to certain types of migraines. And I found that anecdotally they seem linked. but, you know, who knows. Anyway, it's not about me. Replacement units sounds sick, though. All heroes that are not monsters or war machines have the guarded hero passive ability, okay. If this hero is within the combat range of a friendly unit that is not a hero. Subtract 1 from hit rolls for shooting attacks that target the hero. If the hero is infantry, they cannot be picked as a target of a shooting attack made by units more than 12 for them. Okay. So we simply can't be targeted. We're throwing some 40k into AOS. If you have some overpowered force multiplication god who happens to be infantry, you have to kill your opponent's 999 point blob to physically reach the hero and maybe shoot it. You just have to eat that. And 12 inches is more of a range than not, I guess. Unless you have specific sniper guys, yeah, unless there's a rule for that somewhere. And you have it. Ahem. Yeah, 10 wounds is no longer literally worse than 9 in almost every way. That's good. Yeah, Cav heroes are at -1 to hit, but they are trash. In this specific circumstance. Because infantry heroes are gods. You can't even see, you can't look at them. You cannot look upon them. If there's one rat next to a foot hero, and you're more than 12 away, they're not even on this plane of existence. They're a ghost. They're an idea, a thought. And you have to physically get to them. Boo. Next. Oh, here we go. Random characteristics. Way after when I was thinking it would be, but this is good. When using a random characteristic generated each time it is needed. When using random damage generated for each attack made. Some war scrolls show a random characteristic instead of a fixed value. These war scrolls are called bad and not fun. Am I right? When this is the case, the value of the characteristic generated by the commander of the unit in question each time an ability requires that. Okay, yeah, it's the same as the FAQ from before. In the case of random weapon characteristic, generate random attack characteristic for each model and attacking unit each time you declare an attack. Before you're choosing, right, generate random damage each time you inflict. Got it, got it. The effects of some abilities modify a characteristic or role. Unless stated otherwise, a characteristic or role cannot be modified to less than 1. We assume that. The exception is rend. Okay. If a character uses a random characteristic roll, apply the characteristic modifiers after the characteristic has been generated. Yeah, alright, I figured that. You roll the thing and then you add stuff to it. That makes sense. If it's halved or would be modified to a value that is not a whole number, round it down to the nearest whole number. Oh, is this wait, characteristic? No? Okay, this is a change. Movement used to not round. Because it doesn't have to. We're using tape measures anyway. You can move 3.5 inches. You know, it's just right there. And you use a tape measure. But now, you do. Because movement is a characteristic. So if you halve a 7-inch move, it's a 3-inch move now in 4th. Unless it's going to tell me otherwise later. It's kind of a big deal. There's a lot of, or there's several halve move things around there. Modifiers that set a characteristic and then multiply or divide and then add to or subtract. This is just common sense, but it's nice that they laid it out. Odd numbered moves are just a bit worse. Yeah, when taking everything into consideration, there's some little parenthetical or asterisk that's like, if you're fighting anybody that has stuff, then odd move characteristics are quote-unquote bad. But a tiny amount. the Ratoling. Advanced ability rules. Unless stated otherwise, units using or picked as part of an ability must be on the battlefield. Sure. If an effect states that a unit can do something, its commander can choose whether to resolve that or not. Good. Using language that matters here. Can. If an effect says it must, then, well, you do that. If it's impossible, no part of the effect is applied, but the ability is still considered to have been used. Oh, it's still considered to be used even if you don't. Okay. Interesting. Sure. When this unit appears in ability text, most often on War Scrolls, it means the unit that is using the ability. If an ability affects more than one unit, the player who used the ability can choose the order in which the units are affected by it. When resolving an effect, you need to roll a die for multiple affected units. Roll and resolve the effect for one unit before rolling. Okay. If an ability instructs you to pick more than one unit, each unit you pick must be a different unit, unless stated otherwise. Yeah. That's what we assumed, and then the old FAQ was like, nah, dude, you can do the other thing, and now we're going back to that. And we're picking the same guy 5 times, yeah. That was silly. So if it doesn't say different, it still means different, is how we can be thinking about this moving forward. Who is using the ability? Most abilities are found on War Scrolls, but many appear elsewhere. Well, abilities on War Scrolls are always used by the unit whose War Scroll it is. Some abilities that do not appear on War Scrolls will tell you explicitly to pick a unit to use the ability. In both cases, it should be clear which unit is using the ability, okay? Some abilities that do not appear on War Scrolls, most commonly Enhancements, are given a certain unit in such case. Sure. Abilities that neither appear on a War Scroll nor tell you to pick a unit to use the ability are used by you, the player. You have the power. Finally, for the purpose of the rules in this section, when a rule refers to a player using an ability, this indicates abilities used by units in that player's army. Okay. So the language we're looking for, we're not looking for any of that other shit that I talked about before. We are looking for pick a unit to use this ability. That is what we are looking for. So all that other stuff, all that other stuff is a ruse. We don't care about any of that. We are caring about if an ability says pick a unit to use this. And if not, then it's used by you. Persisting effects. Some abilities have effects that are immediately resolved. Add one, yeah. Count as effects are passive. Once per timings. The timing part of some abilities says once per phase, once per turn, or once per battle. If the ability is used by a unit, it can be used a maximum of one time in that phase, turn, or battle by each unit that can use that ability. Alright, here we go. If the ability is used by a player, it can be used a maximum of one time in that timing window by that player. So all that other stuff, we don't care. We are looking for some abilities that are used by units, say once per phase army, once per turn army, once per battle army. These abilities can be used a maximum of one time in that phase, turn, or battle, regardless of the number of units in the army that can use that ability. All of these are not fun. They don't want you to use more than one of any one model, I guess. Boo. Anti-fun, anti-combo, anti-freedom. Trash. But that's how a lot of them work. So now all we have to do to determine whether the doc thing works or not is look for the language. Pick a friendly Daughters of Cain infantry unit that is in combat to use this ability. The Daughters of Cain unit uses this ability. It uses it. And so we're not looking at anything else. We're looking at to use this ability. And so this isn't once per battle. This is once per battle per infantry you have in the whole army. And so this isn't actually kind of bad. Daughters of Cain is incredibly strong now. And also, it's written differently than the Stormcast one is. The Stormcast rule seems like it was written by someone on purpose to trick everyone into thinking that their rules are written in one way, but instead they're written in another. That's bizarre. Hey, alright. Without knowing that specific part of the core rules, it would have made no sense to think this at all. And yet this is how it works. Same with Wa. We'll get to that in Ironjaws, I guess. Is it written in the same way? Maybe it was written very early on and they never changed it. But it was written better early on. This is way worse. Dude, if you don't read that paragraph in the core rules, that one, you would be wrong about how this works. Because it's the most unintuitive thing ever, right? Like, if you read the Stormcast one, and then you read this one, you're like, of course it wouldn't work, right? So yeah, I don't think this is written well at all. I mean, it explains itself in the core rules, but it's strange that it would give you two different ways of them being resolved. Weird. Very weird. Yeah, but the important part is we know. And my job is just to communicate what the case is to people, right? Anyway, that's once per timings. So the key thing for timings is figuring out who's using it. And everything else is obvious. If it says pick a thing to use this, then maximum freedom, right? Okay. Contradictory rules. If two or more rules contradict, if one of those rules states that something cannot do something, this takes precedence over rules that stated can or must do something, unless the second rule specifically overrides the restriction on the first. For example, while the normal move ability states you cannot move into combat, the fly specifies to ignore that. Okay. For example, while the normal move ability states you cannot move into combat, fly specifies to ignore the combat range of enemy. Okay. So can't beats can or must unless it is really specific about it. Isn't this the opposite of exception-based design? No, because what they're saying is the exceptions in our exception-based design are very specific, right? But they do override, you know. Accepting the above, the effect of the most recently used ability takes precedence. Yeah, if you can't figure it out, we added timestamps. The effects of passive abilities are considered to be applied more recently than the effects of others. Oh, neat. Okay, I wondered about that. The effects of the active player's passive abilities are considered to be applied more recently than opponent. So, if it's your turn, you win. The active player chooses in the order in which neutral are. Okay. Yeah, so if it's your turn, you win. Got it. For that stuff. End of turn. We read this one on stream yesterday. I'm not just blowing through it, but we did read it last time. Unfortunately, once you've gained control of an objective, it's yours forever until you lose it. Which means you can gain control of an objective and then just leave, and it keeps giving you points. So that has stuck around. We control stuff that we deploy onto. That was one of the good ones. At the start of the first battle round and the end of each turn, you figure out who controls what. Yeah, end of each turn. A player gains control of the objective if the sum of control characteristics of friendly models contesting the matter is higher. Check if you gain control of the objective at the start of the first battle round and the end of each turn. Opponent remains until opponent gains control of it. Sure. Right. You determine control end of each end phase. Yeah, what you mean is the end. Yeah, the end of turn step or phase or whatever they call it. At the end of each battle round, active player can use any end of battle round abilities. Not just end of turn. Cleanup step, yeah. Objectives stay under your control, but terrain doesn't. Advanced rules. Commands, terrain, magic, army composition, command models, battle tactics. Boo. These rules explain how you can earn command points to use powerful commands. Okay. If you're not using commands, ignore that. Yeah, sure, whatever. Build your own battle pack. Okay. Everything plus extra, just no battle tactics. Thanks. Literally a better game. Best game ever. Use actual everything plus more, just no battle tactics. Better game. Any ability with a command point cost is a command. Sure. Each player gains 4 command points at the start of each battle round. The underdog gains 5. Each unit can only use 1 command in each phase. Each command can only be used 1 time by each army each phase. You must pay the command point cost to use a command. Sure. Each unit can only use 1 command, but a unit could be affected by more than 1 command each phase. For instance, like, you can use 2 commands in 1 phase, right? As long as it wasn't 1 unit doing both. Alright, commands overview. And they're flushed down the toilet at the end of the battle round. Commands are used in a similar manner to any other ability, however, each unit can only use 1 command in each phase. Each command can only be used 1 time by each army in each phase, and you must spend a number of command. Yeah, okay. So we could use 2 different ones from 2 different units in the same phase if we wanted to. Hero phase commands. Rally. Pick a friendly unit that is not in combat. Make 6 rally rolls of d6. For each 4 up, you receive a rally point, and they can be spent to heal or resurrect a number of health on a 1-for-1 basis. Unspent rally points are lost, sure. Um, 3.0 movement phase commands, okay. Command section. Redeploy. Each model can move d6. It technically counts as a run. Important keyword note here. It can't be in combat, and it counts as a run and a move. Enemy magic phase costs 1. That unit can use a spell or prayer as if it were your hero phase. If you do so, subtract 1 from casting rolls or chanting rolls made. Okay. -1 to cast or chant. -1 to chanting is harsh. Yeah. Unless you're charging it up, right? Ahem. Reaction declared a run ability at the double. So you're going to use a run in response at the double. It's just 6. Alright. You don't get to see the roll first. Boo. Shooting phase commands. Covering fire. Enemy shooting phase. Pick a friendly unit that is not in combat. Resolve shooting for that unit, but all the attacks must target the nearest visible enemy. And -1 to hit. Nearest visible enemy unit, okay. So it's kind of under your opponent's control what happens with that. Defensive commands, all out def. Charge phase commands, counter charge, pick a friendly unit that is not in combat. Unit can use charge if it were your charge phase. 2 command points. Damn. The one I want to use. So, the thing about this one is all of these are enemy charge phase, or enemy turn, right? All of the enemy turn ones. Those are going to happen after everything else has happened, right? Because it goes, opponent does everything they want to do, and then you do everything you want to do, right? So they're going to use all their abilities, and then they're going to move everything. And it becomes their charge phase. They're going to use their charge abilities. Then they're going to roll all their charges. And only when they're done with everything do you get to countercharge. So, either you positioned so that they can't kind of escape from it, or if you get to charge them on their turn, they kind of let you, right? Forward to victory, reroll charge. The unit is using this ability, so you can't countercharge and reroll it. You can't do that. So there will be no countercharge rerolling. We moved Unleash Hell to the shooting phase and just let you shoot whoever. But it has to be the nearest visible enemy and -1 to hit rolls. It's gonna end up being the unit that would have charged anyway, because that one's probably gonna be the closest. I guess you could play differently depending. Attacking, shooting, and combat commands. All at attack, we read that. All at defense. End of turn. Power through. Okay. This is the ability that I half listened to and half didn't listen to. And I'm gonna need to... I don't know what it does. People said it's like overwhelming charge, but that's probably not true. And if any turn, power through costs 1. Pick a friendly unit that charged this turn to use this ability. Then you must pick an enemy unit in combat with it to be the target. Okay, so first of all, the fight has to have not... And like you charged something and you failed to kill it. Now what do? Well, you power through. Target must have a lower health characteristic than the unit using this ability, because you have to have power, right? Effect. Inflict D3 mortal damage on the target. Then, the unit using the ability can move a distance up to its move characteristic. And it can pass through and end that move within the combat ranges of enemy units that were in combat with it at the start, but not ones that weren't. It does not have to end in combat. Okay. I guess technically this is like overwhelming charge, but it's really not. The power of overwhelming charge is doing it before you fight, obviously. But yeah, this is a... You failed to kill something, but you get this super reposition and sort of fly when you're doing it. And you can even end outside of combat. You could potentially, if you're just absolutely lighting command points on fire, you could charge in the opponent's turn, and then power through at the end of their turn, and then it's your turn. So if you are going bottom of the battle round and it's your opponent's turn, you pay 2 to countercharge them, fight, and then you power through, and then it's your turn, and your guy's just right there ready to charge again. You could do that. Oh, it doesn't fly over. Sorry, I read pass through. It passed through an end that move within the combat ranges of enemy units. But it can't trample over them or fly. Okay. Okay. Never mind. This sucks. Never mind. I thought this was good. I'm wrong. Yeah. It's trash. When I say it's trash, what I mean is, if your opponent is good, you won't be able to ever use it. But when you're using it, your opponent's going to be able to do whatever they want with it, and it's going to feel overpowered. That's what I mean. All they have to do is lock in one of your guys in between 2 of theirs, and you can't move out, right? That being said, you can always just die or kill them. Yeah, this is the free end of battle round ability, I think, Adcliffe. If there's something available. It's like, gee, my end of the battle round, it's gonna run out anyway. Well, might as well free retreat. Except instead of a retreat, it's like D3 mortal damage on them instead of you. All you gotta do is lock the fuck in. No, I'm mostly joking around. This is really strong, and people will be using it all the time. But good players will stop you from ever meaningfully doing it. What if that good player was you? Terrain. Wholly on terrain and behind terrain. A model is wholly on a terrain feature if its base is on the terrain feature and no part of it. Okay, yep. That sucks. When a unit is targeted by attack, if it is considered to be behind a terrain feature, if it's impossible to draw a straight line from a model in the attacking unit to a model in the defending that doesn't pass across the terrain feature. So to be behind, you gotta be full true line of sight behind. Ignore parts of the terrain feature within the attacking unit's combat range for the purposes of determining if the target is behind the terrain feature. Interesting. Good rule, I think. Good little addendum there. It protects your Stonehorn from the clapback if you whiffed? No, it doesn't. No way. This is end of the turn. So you charge in with your Stonehorn, and you're swinging with attacks that hit on 4s, and one of them hits, and you just whiff it, and nothing happens. Your opponent then attacks you, and you die. And then after combat, the gravestone where your Stonehorn used to be has the option of powering through, but he's dead, so it doesn't. Yeah, if it happened right after you attacked, it would save you from whiffing, but it's end of turn. The momentum, the corpse just continues to roll, and then it falls off the table. Universal terrain abilities, alright. The stone skeleton gets to move. Each terrain feature has one or more of the following passive abilities. Cover, subtract 1 from hit rolls. Unless the unit charged or has fly. So flyers cannot take cover. They can't land. They're not able to. Every flyer in the game doesn't... their legs are gone. They evolved to no longer need them. They're always actually flying. Impassable. Models cannot move across, be set up on, or end moves part of it. Obscuring. Cannot be targeted by shooting attacks if it is behind or wholly on this terrain. Unless it's flying, then it can't land, as we said. Although they deserve it. Flying is so overpowered, they deserve something, I guess. They deserve some sort of just fucking shoot them, right? Place of power. Heroes within 3 of this terrain feature can use activate place of power abilities. See below. Unstable. Models can move across it, but can't be set up on it. Oh. Any type of move on any part of this feature that is more than 1 tall. Okay. I think they're going to put unstable for actually everything. I think everything's going to be unstable. Like, if you can't put your model on top of it, it's probably going to be unstable, and I think that's probably good. Because denoting where you technically are with some dice or something is stupid. Actually punished for flying. We love balance. I mean, not real. Oh, we'll see. Just walk through it instead of the fucking door thing, yeah. Does that mean that abilities that grant cover don't affect flying creatures? Probably. Because cover is rules bold and it's a terrain ability. Subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks that target a unit that is behind or wholly on this terrain feature. Unless that unit charged or has the fly keyword. So if, let's pretend there's a spell that says target friendly unit becomes in cover. Does it affect a flying unit? Honestly, maybe, maybe not. Seemingly no. But I wouldn't write that on an ability anyway. You know? Because it's talking about terrain feature in the rules text. And so you probably don't want to reference terrain feature in the rules text of something that isn't terrain, you know what I mean? You probably just want to say whatever the thing is. This size of terrain is small, this is medium, this is big. Alright. Terrain types, obstacle, obscuring area, place of power, faction. Big model's much safer from shooting now with obscuring. Yeah. I mean, it used to just not affect monsters, so there's no way that it can't be worse, right? You'll still be able to draw a line of sight to it, I think, more often than you think. Because you just need to be able to draw a line of sight to any part that doesn't cross the terrain. But it used to do nothing, so... Activate place of power. Pick friendly hero within 3. Start of any turn. Roll a die on a 1. Inflict D3 mortal damage on the hero. 2 up. If that hero is a wizard or priest, add 1 to the casting roll. If that hero is not a wizard or priest, they can use Unbind or Banish as if they had Wizard 1. This is where we're putting that. It's got to be a place of power. Start of any turn. Start of a turn is a phase, right? Technically. Yeah, start of turn is a phase. Okay. I was wondering because it's a core ability here. Faction terrain, some faction terrain, called faction terrain features. They're not units with the following exceptions. In the charge phase combat, they are treated as if they were. For blah blah blah, you can target them. They can be picked as targets. They're not affected by enemy abilities that do not involve picking targets. No AoE. If you're not picking targets, it doesn't hurt the faction terrain. So if it says like every enemy unit within blah, that might not work because you're not picking them as the target. Maybe. Charging units on terrain. In some cases, not possible to reach an enemy unit using a charge ability when they are wholly on a terrain feature, the top of a tower. Because the charging unit is unable to end their move midway up the terrain feature, and there's not enough room for the models to be placed. In this case, the charging unit can end their charge within a half inch of the terrain feature instead. This would result in the charging unit ending their move in combat with any enemy units wholly on the terrain feature. Still has to be in combat, so within 3. So you can't have a terrain feature this big, and then one guy's over here, and you charge right here, and you're just, oh, I'm in combat, that was a successful charge. You still have to be within 3, it seems. Which is what in combat means. But I like that they're thinking ahead. This makes wildwoods sometimes playable, with the trees in them. Alright, scenery pieces, don't care. Magique. Wizards can cast spells, priests can manage prayers. Each wizard can use a number of unbind abilities per phase equal to their power level. Each spell or prayer can only be used once. Wizard 2 could spell and banish. Alright, spells. Miscast. It fails. Its effects are not resolved. D3 mortal damage is inflicted to the wizard that used it, and the wizard cannot use any more spells that phase. Alright. If the unmodified casting roll includes 2 or more rolls of 1. 2 or more if you're rolling 3d6. The spell is miscast. The spell fails. The effect is not resolved. D3 mortal damage inflicted on the wizard. Wizard cannot use any spells that phase. Their dog dies. Their wife leaves them. Their car starts on fire. They are fired from their work. They lose their livelihood. Oh, you don't have to... Ooh, wait, this is huge. Hold on. I was just reading through this. Spell Prayer Banish. Could use 1 spell and 1 banish ability. If you're a wizard too, do you get 2 unbinds and 2 spells? Or do you have to split them? I thought you had to split them. Each wizard can use the unbind reaction a number of times per phase equal to their power level. This is an exception to the rules of 1. A friendly wizard within 30 casting a spell, you just unbind. Oh. I thought you had to make hard choices. And ooh, you're a wizard too? You get 1 cast, 1 unbind, and if you want to be risky, you can go 2 casts, and if you want to save, you can do a 2 unbind. No. You don't have to make any difficult decisions. You just do it all. Which is how it worked before. But I thought we were introducing some stuff. Alright, wizards are way better. Yeah, we got the full page now. Mystic Shield is a ward of 6 up. It is trash. Mystic Shield used to be +1 armor. It was arguably too good. But now it is trash. Good. Example spell, Mystic Shield. Might have to unbind the cast in your opponent's turn. Well, yeah. But that's just another of... That's a number of unbinds you just have. And then Resurrection. Wait a minute, Resurrection? Are they showing me Spearhead only rules here, chat? Mystic Shield and Resurrection are only in Spearhead? Or something? Oh, it's not Spearhead? Worse, it's Path to Glory? Oh. Why would you trick someone like that? You're tricking them into thinking that Path to Glory exists at all, and that these abilities exist. Do I have to go onto the store page and buy more ability milk for a bunch of free spins at the wheel? These are not real. Okay, we ignore. Jealous mages and fickle gods. No more than one friendly wizard casts the same spell per turn unless the spell is unlimited. Likewise, no more than one friendly priest can chant the same prayer unless it has unlimited. Sure. Boo, actually, but fine. But Khorne hates sorcery. Even though wizards and priests draw upon very different sources of power in the lore, the former harnessing the modes of magic that permeate the realms, the latter calling upon the divine. Such nuances are lost in the average person in the realms. For rules purposes, the miraculous abilities of both wizards and priests are dealt with in the magic module. Oh, okay. This is just like... Technically, this is the magic module, but it has priests as well. Okay. What a waste of time. Magic is not sorcery. It's different. They can only use spells and prayers they know. Each wizard priest knows any spells or prayers on its war scroll, plus all of the ones that you take for your army. They just know all of them. You don't have to pick like one spell they know. They just know the lore. Good. Big. Good work. A lot of those silver bullet spells might ever end up getting used, I guess. It's kind of nice. Manifestations. These are endless spells, and they're just the same. They're treated as though they're units for purposes of movement, combat range, blah blah. They can charge, fight. If they have a move characteristic greater than 0 or dash, they can use core move. If the wizard or priest that summoned the manifestation is slain, the manifestation is removed. Oh, easy. Okay. You simply shoot the wizard, and then the manifestation goes away. Alright, so it matters who summoned it then. That's something you gotta keep track of. They are treated as if they were units, for the purposes of movement, combat range, being in combat, and setting up units. But they are not units. They're treated as though for a bunch of stuff. And everybody can banish. Yeah, they don't contest. It's just for moving, combat range, and being in combat. Your hero phase, keywords banish. Pick a friendly wizard or priest, use his ability, pick a manifestation within 30. Banishment roll if it exceeds or equals. Is banished within 30. Importantly, no visibility required. Pick friendly wizards or priest, use the ability, pick a manifestation within 30 of them. It doesn't have to be visible, it seems. Army roster's rules will explain how to create an army roster. Points limit. Before you start filling out your roster, you and your opponent must agree on a points limit. Most players use a limit of 1,000 or 950, or 2,000 points, or 1950. Is this the most complicated edition of AOS? No. Arguably the simplest. With the exception of the original launch 4-page rules, Play-Doh and G.I. Joe's finger painting and kindergarten edition. Yeah, it was probably the most complicated, maybe 2nd edition, I guess. But your definition of complicated could be, I mean, there's so many things, like, there's a lot of different types of complication. No more than half of your points can be spent on a single unit. Okay. Mega Gargants, literally unplayable for 1k unless they're not 500, unless they're like 499 or something. Underspending is a bad option. I think I disagree. You only get it in the first battle round, which is potentially the least likely battle round you're going to use stuff for, right? But you can convert that into something else, right? So for instance, you get one extra command point. Well, you could then spend that to prey on your opponent's turn and convert that command point into ritual points that you do get to keep from one thing to another, right? So it yeah, I still think it's probably worth it, but it'll depend, you know. $1K games don't exist. Spearhead exists now. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. The types of AOS games you can play are Spearhead and 2000. Anyway, battle formations. Armies of Renown. We saw this. Yep, we read that before. The General. You must pick one hero. If any units in your army have the War Master keyword, you must pick one of those. And I thought then the War Master was a straight downside, but it's actually not, because you can give, supposedly, command traits to anybody. But no more double Jennies. And the War Master's regiment is possibly a big one that you can put other heroes in. Yeah, uniques cannot take enhancements, no fun allowed. You can reinforce. A reinforced unit has twice as many models, twice as many points. Unique units. You cannot include the same unique unit more than once in your army. That's what it means to be unique, and it can't be reinforced. Regiments and Renown. In addition to creating your own regiments, you can also spend points to include one regiment of renown. They are pre-built regiments, each with their own special abilities. The rules for them specify which factions can include it. A unit in a regiment of renown can be your general, even if it is a War Master. That seems to be what allies are. Unless there's an ally section somewhere. You get regiments of renown. Good. Very good for the game. Auxiliary units allow you to take any units from your faction without the constraints of regiments, at the cost of potentially giving your opponent a massive advantage. You can add any number of units to your auxiliary unit section. However, the player with the fewest auxiliary units gets an extra command point at the start of the battle round. Each battle round. Damn, you get 5 command points over the course of the game if your army roster has no auxiliary units in it and your opponent does. That's you take 0 auxiliary, the end of story, period, exclamation point, period. It almost doesn't matter how good the augs is. You just don't do it. And then faction terrain features. Let's go. Finishing touches. Enhancements. Each set of faction rules include a number of enhancements can be given to units, heroic traits, which now can be given to anybody, not just your general. Big. Mount traits. The only hopium I have left, basically, for ogres is like mount traits and Frostlord, I guess. And artifacts of power. You can take one enhancement from each enhancement table in your faction rules. Each enhancement table lists which units are eligible. Uniques cannot be given. Yeah. Same unit can never have more than one enhancement of the same type, but they can have ones of different types. Big. And you can never include the same enhancement in your army more than once. Boo. Armies like cities and OBR will get a whole extra battle trait for each hero they take. Might sacrifice the command point for more heroes. Well, they wouldn't. I don't think I would consider it sacrificing a command point. You're giving one to your opponent, right? Is how I would look at it. You were never gonna get. You were never gonna get one really based on your choices. All you can do is give one away, and be prepared to accept one. I think. What if ogres became a war scroll army? Then I would have looked at different war. I would have looked at war scrolls that had different stuff on them when I was looking over the faction rules. But sure, I mean that would be fine. But I looked at some of the war scrolls already, and they ain't the war scroll army. That's for sure. But hey, we'll consider if they know auxiliaries are bad and use that to balance a faction by making all their regiments bad. True, yeah. I can't wait. What do you mean war scroll army? What they mean by a war scroll army is a faction where you look at their, like, you know, their army rules, battle traits. You can use this once a game, you know, what your army rules. All those are trash. Just trash, right? And then you look at your spells, and your spells are terrible. And you look at your artifacts and command traits and sub-faction bonuses, and they're just terrible. But all your war scrolls for your units are, like, overpowered. All of them are flying and fast and do a shitload of damage and have great saves and wards and everything. They're the best at everything. That's like a war scroll army. And so this is a type of army that you could make if you're trying to balance things, where all your war scrolls are literally overpowered, but essentially all of your rules are terrible, and this is the balance of it. The opposite of this would be Old Corn, where all your war scrolls are terrible, but you have so many buffs and so many zones and extra attack from this, extra attack from this, extra attack from this, bonus damage from this, blah 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 blah, right? That you build your shit ass sponge troops up to being actually good once you do all that stuff, right? And so this is like Old Corn used to be like that. Daughters of Cain was like that, except their war scrolls did not start out bad. They actually started out okay, and then they got way better. Seraphon for a little while were kind of like that. Not with stacking buffs, but just having the most overpowered army rules ever, that even war scrolls that were terrible could still win a lot. Anyway, so like it's an option. You could choose to turn the balance knob in that way if you wanted to. And a little bit of that is probably fine. I don't know that I would go all or nothing. Like an army of Gotreks, where you have 2,000 points of only Gotreks and then like 0 abilities. That might get old to play, you know. But you could, I suppose you could do it. How's your head? Not good. But don't worry about it. Also, I'll stop by, give you your Kragnos back. I still have it on my table over here. I'll stop by over the weekend or something. I'll leave the log cabin wizard tower, and when I open the door, it'll sound like cracking the vacuum seal on like a spaceship decompression chamber. And then I'll walk outside. Sounds like sizzling bacon outside. Ugh. All right, maybe I'll go at night instead of the daytime. Is that the iOS core book? It is. You can find it in my Discord under Giga, and probably a lot of other places as well, I bet. Anyway, pick a spell lore. If you do all wizards in your army, know all the spells from the lore. Cool. Just a great change. Just a nice change. Same with the priest one. And then everybody gets manifestations for free. Hell yeah. I wonder how that's going to turn out. It probably sounded like I was being sarcastic, but I'm actually wondering how that's going to turn out. Add auxiliary and faction terrain. At enhancements, got all our weapons here. Pickalores. Let go. Agree on a points limit. 1,000 points? No. 2,000 points? Yeah. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. One to 5 regiments per army. Must pick one hero to be your general, okay? Each regiment has blah, 1 hero, 0 to 3 non-hero, 0 to 4 hero, reinforced double points. And then if it's your general, you can have 4. Sure. If a unit had champion 110 on its keywords bar, then one model in the unit could be a champion for every 10 models in the unit. Unless it's a return destroyed unit. Then you can have a champion that's supposed to be in 1 of 10, but it's 1 of 5. Because it explicitly breaks that rule. But that sounds like fun to me, so I'm not complaining. Add 1 attacks character as a weapon used by champions in this unit. Champions cannot receive most special weapons, which I think is a bad change. Most people had already modeled the special weapon onto their champions. I think it's dumb to force all that not to matter for 1 piddly extra attack. Kind of stupid. Don't like it. I mean, we're not doing what you see is what you get anyway. But it sucks when you pull the rug out in any case. And you've already modeled it that way. I don't know, it's annoying. One of the worst changes a 4th. Because it fucks with people's previously complete hobby. Which is annoying. Can you have more than 1 squad leader in reinforced squads? I don't see why not. If it's 1 in 10, then that seems to imply it's 2 in 20. I would think. Unless it says otherwise in this paragraph here. If there's a number after the champion keyword, that number indicates the proportion of models there can be a champion. In any other case, 1 model in the unit can be a champion. Okay, so there's 2 possibilities. 1, if it says champion 1 in 10, then you can have 1 if you have 10, and you can have 2 if you have 20. If it doesn't have the parenthetical and just says champion, then you only get 1. So, can you have more than 1 champion? Well, it depends on how it prints it at the bottom of the page. Musician, you get to make 1 additional rally roll. Yeah, I don't think we've seen 1 scroll that has multiple championing. I don't recall either. But, let's see. Standard bearers. Add 1 to unit's control score. Okay. Battle tactics. Battle tactics are picked during using the tactical gambit ability at the start of your turn. Are completed at the end of your turn. Each battle tactic is worth 4 victory points. That's a lot. That's a lot of points. Once per battle round, start of your turn. You can use this ability if you went second in the previous battle round and chose to go first in this one. Yep. Pick 1 battle tactic that you have not yet attempted. You can attempt to complete it this turn. At the end of turn, if you did, you get 4 points. if you took a double turn, you can't do this, and the most points you can score for that turn is 6 instead of 10, which is bad. But you just probably did a shitload of damage, which is good. But games are won on points, not damage. Bad. But now you're the underdog, and so you get a bonus. Good. I don't know. I feel like you still never take a double unless it's going to win you the game, probably. But we'll see. We'll see how it works out. Universal Battle Tactics. Okay, it's time to read these because the ones we read for destruction were trash. Do not waver. You complete this battle tactic if 2 or more friendly units fought this turn and no friendly units were destroyed. Cool. Okay, that's doable. Slay the entourage. Pick a unit in the enemy general's regiment. You complete this if you destroyed it. Okay, so just pick a unit and destroy it. Sure. Attack on 2 fronts. You complete this battle tactic in turn if you control 2 or more objectives that you did not control at the start of your turn, and at least 1 was controlled by your opponent. Okay. Take their land. No, my lands. Pick terrain feature wholly or partially within enemy territory and wholly outside of friendly. You complete this battle tactic if you control that terrain feature at the end. Okay. Play this tactic. 2 or more friendly units are within 3 of the center. These are like generic. We probably won't be using them for GHB season or whatever, but they seem all pretty easy. We're keeping the core rules ones pretty easy. So we had a chat about how realistic it is to not have auxiliary units? No, because we don't know what is and isn't. Could be anything. Auxiliary units could be a collection of only your best guys that you can't not take, and you just have to eat it, you know. It could be great for some armies and bad for others, and so winners and losers are chose based on what counts as auxiliary. It could be that things are auxiliary unless they're in your general's thing, and then the general's thing matters. It could be a whole lot of stuff. We just don't know yet. We could opine about how shit or cool it would be if any of those were the case, but that's, you know, not sure. I mean, you can of course imagine, right? You can imagine a world, and it's not hard because it's usually the world where their army, all their best units, fit everywhere easily. No auxiliary. Pick any hero you want, goes in anything, don't worry about it. Your army, all the best units auxiliary only, can't use it in anything, forced to take trash, like tax, you know, you can just imagine some bad, you know, way it shakes out. And then the only auxiliary in their army is like a unit no one wants to take anyway, so it doesn't matter. Like, you could invent a way to get pre-mad about it, I suppose, but we haven't looked at the faction focuses yet, no. I'm almost done with the core rules. Core rules will give us more context for making decisions about the faction foci, in my opinion. Anyway, Spearhead. People tell me it's fun. I think I believe them. Path to Ignori. The actual game. Alright. Nice. It seems like they haven't... So is Path to Glory just the de facto narrative choice? I guess? As far as like ways to play the game, there's... If you're a new player getting into it, it's Spearhead. If you're a narrative player, all you have is Path to Glory or shit that you make up. And if you play the game, it's matched play. Is that kind of what we're at? And then make sure to buy the $175 General's Handbook that contains 4 pages of rules in it, or whatever, every 6 months. What if Path to Glory was fun? Geez, I don't know. What if Games Workshop models were free? What if, I don't know. What if you didn't have to work? What if to feed the fox's children, he didn't have to kill the rabbit's father, right? In nature, you know? There's all sorts of stuff that, you know, if the world was different, the world would be different, you know? Anyway, Battle Tactics. Spearhead, Fire and Jade, Bounce the Glory Ascension, Match Play First Blood. And then we got a bunch of this crap. Citadel Terrain List. Border Heywoah. Looks like a lot of the defender and attacker territories are just a straight line. That's kind of good. We're finally doing that. That's good. They don't have to be a straight line straight through. You can do an angle. You can do a diagonal. We're just, I mean, we're using like a red line, right? So it can be any angle you want. Just never make staircases, right? Still terrain list. Here's your buy list. Gloss Airy. Oh, there he is. The Scriptor Mortis. The fucking dude. What if scorpions didn't sting the toad? Yeah. What if bear came through the door? These don't matter, they're core, we're only playing GHB plans. You are correct. How do you feel about triangles? No. Only one line, straight line. Has anyone ever seen the scriptor on a table? Yeah, but it was for a painting competition. But the painting competition did have a table. Anyway, very interesting. That is the core rules. We've learned a lot, and things have changed about how we felt about some other abilities, most notably the Daughters of Cain one, that worked in a way that no one could possibly have guessed unless they had read the rule in the core rules early. But we know it works that way now with full context. And so maybe other stuff works that way too. I need to go back and look. Yeah, war has changed. Because there's other abilities that are basically almost exactly the same, but aren't written like that for some reason, like the Stormcast one. Super weird. It's almost like they were tricking us on purpose. Anyway, it's time to talk about all of the faction focuses with a renewed vigor. Also, Daughters of Cain goes up a bunch of spaces on the excitement tier list now that we know how its ability works. Daughters of Cain, much more fun. You get to double pile in all your guys once a game. Every single unit on the table that's infantry gets the double pile in. Now, it's still not the best because they're a glass cannon, but if they don't wipe you out to a man, you always get to attack twice, which is kind of cool. Kind of nice with it. No other battle traits benefited from that change. Okay, well, so we don't need to change anything then. Good. Besides just that. Wipe out a unit and then get a free 3-inch move. True. Actually true. Anyway, I'm going to be right back. Take some migraine med. Have a hot chip or two. And then we will do some all 4 faction focuses. This is going to be a longer BRB, maybe 2 minutes or something. So get up and stretch your legs. BRB.